As we enter tonight's ceremony, it's kind of a special occasion for the Board of Directors. This is our 20th year to have the Mountie Hall of Fame, and so it's kind of a landmark year for us. And I wanted to take a special moment and introduce two people who are here this evening who were inducted in the first ever class for the Mountie Hall of Fame, and that's Whitey Smith and Brother Ben Rao. So let's introduce the new class. This is the class of 2019. The first inductees will be our 1956-57 state championship basketball team. They will be introduced by Mr. Mitchell Hankins.
I've spent about 18 months putting this thing together for these guys. I want you to know that one who is still with us couldn't make it tonight due to illness in the family, and that was Johnny Winchester. But we do have Owen Anderson, Dave Ross, and Steve Roberts, the very nucleus of that basketball team. Dave's going to talk about the team and the state attorney, and right after that, Owen's going to say a few words about the coaches and what he had to go through. You know, first time is a big thing, and when I introduced you to the 1936 state football champions, they had a first-year coach in Doc Ledbetter, who left after that championship year and went to Hobbs, New Mexico. Well, this team was inherited by a first-year coach named Harold Bizel, and after the state championship team, he left, and he went to East Central High in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He coached in California, came back here. He passed away in 2017. So first year is quite a thing. It seems like when coaches win championships, they up and leave. But I had one, I'd like to recognize him. And I was very fortunate to play for him and be on his first undefeated district championship team. And we lost him last year, and that was Gary Blackie Bond. And he stayed in town for several years and had quite a few teams. Now this basketball team, I'm going to hone in on the state tournament because that is what is really interesting to me and all the sidebar stories that go with it. They had to beat Bentonville in a regional in Harrison. They did that. I think the score was 54-48. And from there they went to Jonesboro. The first game was on a Wednesday. And I'm going to tell you another first here. It was Greer Lingo's first year as superintendent at Rogers Schools. And I'll tell you another thing about Greer Lingo. He never spent the night. He always drove back after the games. So they beat Waldron, and the game was played in the afternoon, and it was broadcast over the intercom at the school. Everybody shut down, which I thought was really great. They ended up having to play Jonesboro on a Thursday night. Jonesboro was the favorite. 8,000 people attended, and these guys took it to them, and I'm sure Dave's going to tell you all about it. Now Owen, he was more of the rebounder, block shots, and if you got some points from him, that was great. He was the blue-collar guy. I want to tell you of one who lost his life in a tragic accident on the Mississippi River, and that was Darrell Boyer. He was the only junior on the team. Darrell went on to play basketball at John Brown University after he graduated from Rogers High. He then took up jobs in Kansas. At the age of 25, he was a superintendent over a school district in Kansas. He made 3 stops in Kansas, came back to Hollister, Missouri, and was superintendent over the Ozark school system for several years. And if you look at their book in the back, there's a lot of information about Darrell Boyer. He lost his life on the Mississippi River. Him and 3 buddies were going to float the Mississippi River from Cape Girardeau to Lake Pontchartrain. Their wives were going to meet them there. They got down around Marion in that area, and the river's so swift, it took their boat underneath a barge, and Darrell perished that time. Teddy McConaughey is no longer with us, but he was a speedy, rotund, as they would like to call it, guard, very quick. Jack Hill was an accomplished journalism major who did several documentaries, and you can see him on PBS in Arkansas, and he went on to be TV announcer, radio, and when he was in Rogers in high school, he disc jockeyed part-time at KAMO radio. Jack Hill went on to the Air Force. He came back to be a milkman here in the Rogers area for Foremost and Highland Dairy. Earl Kapler. Earl was a junior on this team. He went on to the College of the Ozarks, ended up at Northeastern State, Oklahoma, playing basketball. Then he went on to have C&E gravel and excavation out of Lowell. Andy McCurdy went to the military academy, came back here to be an accountant and comptroller over Mercy Health. So there's a lot of these guys with a lot of information, or a tremendous amount of experience, and did well in the industrial afterlife. They did, and Mr. Anderson here helped engineer the first hydrous ammonia pipeline in the United States. Dave worked for Phillips Petroleum. He went all over the world as an accountant for them. Steve came back to be a tremendous realtor here. And I'd like to, Dave's going to talk first, Owen's going to talk second, but I'm sure they have a story to tell you about this 56-57 state basketball champion, the only one in Rogers High School history to date. Dave.
Thank you, Mitchell. Well, I got here tonight and I had my story prepared, and I'm hearing several different versions of what actually happened. I'm going to tell it the way I remember it. When Mitchell called and told me our state championship back in 1957 was going to be inducted to the Rogers Athletic Hall of Fame, I was excited. I Googled the Hall of Fame, looked at the members, and read their accomplishments. These were tremendous athletes, and I want to thank the board tonight for inviting us to join those athletes. I first met Steve, Teddy, and their teammates when they came to Garfield to play a ball game in the 9th grade. I remember that game because Rogers was the biggest team we'd ever played, the biggest school we'd ever played. For the next 3 years, we played together, had a lot of fun, and went to the state tournament in our junior and senior years. It's been 62 years since we won the championship in 1957, but I can remember what a big deal it was for us. As Mitchell mentioned, Jonesboro is the tournament favorite. They had won the state in 1954 and 1956. And we took them out in our second game on their home court. So, I think our strongest asset was how well we played together. Steve was worked inside and was our leading scorer. Teddy was a good ball handler and shooter. Owen was a rebounder, and Owen was all elbows. It was not uncommon to see 2 or 3 players holding their heads after one of Owen's rebounds. If we had a concussion protocol then as we do now, we probably couldn't have mustered a full team. I did most of my shooting from the outside because I didn't want to get inside with Owen. I remember one interesting incident with Teddy. When he went for a ball, he ripped the seat of his pants. He was dribbling with one hand and trying to cover his backside with the other. Then timeout was called, and he and the teammate ran to the locker room to change shorts so Teddy could get back in the game. And I thought it was one team member. I find out it was another team member, so different stories. There was a huge scoreboard at the tournament that had a light for every town that was represented in the tournament. When a team lost, their light went out. And it was nice to see, look up and see, Rogers was the only light left on the scoreboard, and nice to see the fans rushing on the court after our final game was over. I think I got more hugs that night than I did all through high school. A few years ago, I was visiting with Jerry Oldridge at a class reunion, and he told me about his and Darwin Deason's trip to the tournament in Jonesboro. They caught a ride with some Rogers fans, and thinking that they would come back after one game. Well, we kept winning, and they lost, they ran out of money, but they're hanging out at the dairy bar, and they met some Jonesboro football players who they became friends with. Jerry told them they were broke, no money to eat or go to the games, and the football players, well, said, come home and stay with us. And they did that. They slept on the floor and on the couch, ate with the family, and the wife even pressed her clothes, washed and pressed her clothes for them. The football players were wearing their letter jackets, and since they were Jonesboro players, they went in without pay when they were wearing their letter jackets. So they told Jerry and Darwin to go to the rear entrance, wait for them. They went in the front entrance, didn't have to pay, and went to the back entrance and handed their jackets to Jerry and Darwin, who then went around front, walked through without pay, and they got to watch the rest of the tournament with their new friends. Unfortunately, the day after the tournament ended, they missed the ride and had to hitchhike back to Rogers. They were stranded in a small town that night, but they went around the motel and found a window that they could pry open, and they crawled through the window and spent the night in the motel. We got a huge welcome when we got back to Avoca on our way home. The band, the pep squad, and 200 vehicles were waiting for us. The state police escorted that caravan back to Rogers. Mr. Lingle declared the next Monday a school holiday. The Rotary Club treated us to a luncheon, and there was even a calendar printed with our team picture on it. I've always been proud of what we accomplished in 1957. I think all of us are faced with challenges in our lifetime where we look back at past success to help us get the confidence to handle current situations. Many times I've looked in my mind's eye back to one week, 1957, in our division, we were the best team in the state of Arkansas. This has helped give me a lot of confidence to face challenges in my lifetime. I have a plaque at home that says, "Enjoy life, this is not a rehearsal." And we enjoyed our high school basketball, and we enjoy the honor we're receiving here tonight for all of our team members to join all of the outstanding athletes in the Mountie Athletic Hall of Fame. Thank you.
I'm just up here to make a few comments. One comment, the coaching staff, if you go back and you don't think of it as a kid, But I think of Coach Johnson. He was mean, but he gave you discipline. Coach Matthews left in our junior year, but he took me as a kid and had me jump ropes 45 minutes a day so I could learn to walk and talk and chew gum. Coach Sutton molded us into a team. Coach Beisel came along, and I'll swear, one night we had a heck of a winding. He didn't say next morning anything about it, but he said, run 50 laps. That's all he said that day. Now I want to compliment a local gentleman here, Guy Cable. Guy knocked the hell out of me so that when I got to Play Center, I knew what to do. He was able to something else. Now the other thing is we played as a team, not as individuals. There's one person tonight that's missing. It's Barb Burkett. Barbara worked hard for us as a team, and we wish her well.
Good evening, I'm Shara Sherman Guest, and I am introducing Cheryl Hastings Bishop. I really just have one apology for her, is that I didn't do this sooner. She has deserved this, and I think I waited just a little bit too long, but we got there in the end, and I'm just super excited for Cheryl. She really does deserve this. She was a great athlete at Rogers High School. Not only did she play basketball, but she was on the track team, also played or ran cross country. Our cross country team, or her cross country team, had 2 state championships. Her basketball was phenomenal. She was such a good friend to me and a good mentor. She was a year older than me in high school, still is, I guess. And when I came in as a timid sophomore, not knowing what was going to happen with the Pat-Keck basketball regime, we were all a little bit anxious and nervous. And she took all of us under her wing, showed us the ropes. And not only was she a great mentor, but she was a great friend, and did so many things to help us on and off the court. She is just such a special person. She was on the Honor Society, or on the honor roll throughout high school. So.
Our third inductee this evening is Mrs. Billy Sue Hankins, and she will be presented by Mr. Mark Kruger.
Thank you, Brian. You know, this may be the first time in 25 years or so that I've been on this stage and not started off with sit down, shut up, keep your hands to yourself. And I wasn't going to say that tonight, but then I looked up and saw Patrick Woodruff and said, you know, something's got to be done. Patrick, thank you. Our next inductee into the Rogers High School Athletic Hall of Fame is a native of Rogers and became a Mountie fan at around age 3. She grew up on North 3rd Street, close to the location of Old Mountie Stadium, where the post office sits today. She graduated from Rogers High School, where she was a member of the Blue Demons Pep Squad. She married a former Mountie and a Hall of Fame inductee. Soon she went to work at Daisy Manufacturing, but that didn't last very long. Frank Tillery coaxed her into coming to work at Northside Elementary. She worked for the Rogers Public Schools for the next 32 years. She spent 2.5 years at Northside, 17.5 at Elmwood Junior High, and 11.5 years at Rogers High School. All of this time, she remained a loyal Mountie fan and supporter. While she was working at RHS, Coach Charlie Cooper, Coach Gary Bond, Whitey Smith, Dale Bland, and others formed the Rogers High School Athletic Hall of Fame. Now, initially, she was not a member of the board, but she sat in on all the meetings just to see how things were done. Well, the boys weren't stupid. They very shortly elected her to the board and made her secretary. She was the glue that held them together. She kept them organized and focused. She required them to attend meetings and to actually get work done. She archived all of their proceedings. She made all of the arrangements for the induction banquets, food, flowers, decorations, custodians, programs, tablecloths, along with setup and takedown for the entire thing. She did them all. Also, while at RHS, she helped with every homecoming and every color day. She helped with the ceremonies both in the gym and at the field. All of it was on her to-do list. The parade also. On a weekly basis, she attended ball games. She made sure that everyone wore blue on game days. She wrote personal notes to players and made sure that the fight song was played over the intercom between bells every period. Because of her organizational skills and pride in Rogers, she was selected to the committee for the construction of Heritage High School. When the Hall of Fame was abandoned for 3 years, she still kept up her spirit-boosting activities. Then when the Hall of Fame was revived, she jumped back in with both feet. She quickly took over again as secretary, provided the archives and organization and enthusiasm to help make the Hall of Fame viable again. She has recently retired, but she is still the #1 Mountie fan. The Hall of Fame, I assure you, would not be here without her. She fully believes once a Mountie, always a Mountie. When asked what Mounties meant to her, she replied, spirit and pride. And she exemplifies both. She bleeds Mountie blue, and I'm told that the only thing that she might possibly be better at than being a Mountie supporter is being a grandmother. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to introduce to you the queen of the Rogers High School Athletic Hall of Fame, Ms. Billy Sue Hammond.
Oh my goodness, where do I start? I want to give a special thanks to Dr. Reliance and his wife who are in attendance. Dr. Reliance is the principal here at Rogers High School, and of course to school board members and Dr. Berry. A great big thank you to the Hall of Fame committee, to my family, my husband Mitchell, my daughter Michelle Gaffney, her husband Darren, and my 2 granddaughters, Brett and Sydney, my friends, and to the Rogers School District for hiring me many years ago. I'm so humbled and blessed to receive this incredible award and very grateful to be here, all of my friends to be here to help me celebrate this award. I'm so honored to be among these accomplished athletes. And I can tell you, this tells you how old I am. I remember watching Cheryl Hastings shooting baskets in her driveway. And her dad was out there in the yard watching her, by the way. And I think her brother John might have been helping just a little bit. As Tom Woodruff might begin the evening tonight, he might say, it's a great day to be a Mountie, and I agree. But if you were around in the 1960s, you might have heard Mr. Rogers say, it's a beautiful day to be in my Mountie neighborhood. Welcome, come on in. a place where children will feel accepted and where they will be understood. You are our guest tonight, and we are so glad that you came. Enjoy visiting about old memories. Keep them very deep in your hearts. Laugh with one another, tell stories with one another. Allow me to begin by saying I've been honored to be a part of the Rogers Mountaineer Hall of Fame for many years. This organization is really a very important piece to our community. This year we are celebrating 20 years, as Brian said earlier. A big thank you goes out to Coach Cooper for seeing the vision for organizing a group to recognize the citizens and the special accomplishments of all of our Rogers athletes. Also this year, when it comes time for homecoming, this will be our 95th Rogers homecoming, which will be celebrated as normal with a parade. Now I would like to say just a few words about our community. Some people cross our paths and they change our whole direction. Growing up in Rogers really was like magic. I attended a Rogers Historical Museum meeting just recently, and that comment was made, and I so much agree with that. We have families who care so much for one another, and they still do. Just one small correction. I grew up in downtown Rogers, but I grew up on South 3rd Street. Yeah, David. We grew up near where the train station was. We grew up hearing those chimes ring every day from the downtown First United Methodist Church. I grew up so thankfully among many happy neighbors who cared a lot for me. I remember walking down alleys that still exist to play with my friends. I really had an uneven childhood. Things were not always the happiest in my home where I grew up. I needed that feeling of a community caring for me, and I had it. I wasn't just another kid on the block. I had friends who made me feel like I belonged. I had teachers who came beside me and made me feel like I could do anything in the whole wide world I wanted. I could reach my highest potential. All I had to do is try just a little bit harder. I attended Central Ward Elementary School. I attended Rogers Junior High. And I graduated in 1966 from Rogers High School. Who would have believed that I could live long enough to actually see 2 junior highs, who now are middle schools, and 2 high schools in Rogers, Arkansas. Wow. How amazing is that, folks? How amazing is that? Mr. Kruger and I had a conversation, as he said earlier, and he asked me, when I say Mounties to you, what do you think about? I tell you what my first 2 people were, Frank Tillery and Blackie Bond. Those 2 gentlemen, I just can't tell you how big they were for all of us who grew up knowing them as coaches. Mr. Tillery, of course, was the head coach, and Blackie was his assistant. Every Friday night, it was so common for us as a family for me to pack Michelle up, make sure we had, if it was cold, we had to make sure we had coats and we could bundle all up, and we would load up on chartered buses and follow our Rogers Mounties, no matter where they were. Mitchell most usually didn't get to make those trips because he was officiating football somewhere, but Michelle and I sure did. And we stood behind our Mounties, and we still do. One person I remember when I was younger was a gentleman named Tracy Lockhart. He was a very colorful figure in downtown Rogers, back in the 1940s until around 1967. He and his brother Bill were injured in a wood cutting accident when they were young, and they were crippled for life. Unable to work, he refused to accept any kind of charity, and he supported himself and his brother Bill by peddling his wares along with gum and candy around Rogers. Some of y'all that are sitting in the audience would remember his saying, "Chewing gum, candy, right here handy." When he passed away in 1967, the shopkeepers and the professionals downtown closed many of their businesses in order to attend his funeral. Tracy was one of the first donors to the new Rogers Memorial Hospital, which was built in 1950. He donated $500. That person is a person who made a real difference. I believe for any person to excel in sports or anything can do so with the help and the support of people and friends who work and make the circumstances right for that person to shine. If I could leave you with one message tonight, it's to find a way to give back to your community. There's many, many needs that need to be met. If we're lucky, we can make the chapters of our sweet life a brand new beginning each day. Our differences make us interesting. Everyone sitting out here, we all have something in common. But I will tell you two things we have in common. We love our Mounties and we love our War Eagles. So what will your next chapter look like? Make it be a good one. You can be the one that makes a difference to someone. Thank you again for coming tonight. And remember, once a Mountie, always a Mountie.
So I have the honor of introducing Michael Tibbs, Captain Michael Tibbs of the U.S. Air Force, currently stationed at Edwards Air Force Base in California and working out there. Michael was a 2009 graduate of Rogers High School, which was right after we split, so it's that was the first year. He was a senior that first year. He was a 2013 graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy, and while at the Air Force Academy, he was a 4-year letterman in track and field. At RHS, he was a 3-year letterman in football and a 4-year letterman in track. And those of you, all of you know all about sports and everything. To be a 3-year letterman at that time in our conference and at this school and the size of this school, if you lettered as a sophomore, you're pretty special. But I think we all know that, sitting up on this stage, all these athletes and all these people are pretty special. At Air Force, while he was competing, before he ended his career, his senior year he had a hamstring injury, which kind of set him back where he would have even done better. At that time, in the history of U.S. Air Force, he set the second best mark for the indoor heptathlon, being a multi-event athlete, and also set the 5th best score in Air Force history in the decathlon in outdoor track. Michael's college track coach said he was the hardest worker he'd ever seen, and I've got to agree with that. As his track coach at Rogers High School, I think that's one of the qualities that made him such an exceptional athlete, his willingness to outwork his opponent. I can't tell you the number of days that the sun went down on us and we ran out of light and we're still pole vaulting, and he wouldn't quit. And coaching a guy like that, as a coach, he really challenged me. He's a extremely intelligent guy. He went to Air Force, but he was a real student of the game. He studied what he did. He wanted to be better. He made me be better. I had to keep up with this guy, and I tell you what, he about drove me crazy. But it was the best time of my life. He made me a better coach, and at that time, it was a really, really good time for track and field here in this town. In 2008, we won the state championship, and in 2007, we won the first state championship. In 2008, we won the Triple Crown. Michael was a big part of both of those. Michael was a sophomore that first year and then a junior in 2008. And honestly, they say we won the Triple Crown, but that same year in 2008, Michael won the state decathlon. So we really won the quadruple crown right there, if you say it. We kind of stole all the state championships that year in track. It was a big year, and it was just so much fun to be around. As a football player, you know, I'm a track coach, so I'm kind of stealing all the track highlights here. But as a football coach, I was able to be involved in coaching football at the junior high level in the 8th grade and 9th grade with Michael, and he was just special. And being a decathlete and being so good in track, that really played over to his ability to be a really good quality running back. And Michael, he received playing time as a sophomore. He became a big part of the offense as a junior, and he was the offense as a senior until the 5th game of his senior year when he tore his ACL. And you know, as I mentioned before, that senior year was the year we had split, and I had left, and I was coaching over at Heritage. And it just sickened my heart to think, as a track coach, that he's torn his ACL, and he was looking at setting a state record in the actual decathlon that year. And I really felt like it was over. I was just distraught. And 6 months later, that guy is back on the track. Actually earlier than that, but 6 months later, he's on the track at the decathlon, gutting it out, fighting through everything, jumping off the wrong leg in the high jump and long jump, and my goodness, you should have seen the triple jump. But he really gutted out that performance, one of the best performances ever by an athlete ever. And he ended up finishing 2nd that year. But he made it, and he made it through. But his junior year, Michael was the champion of the decathlon. And also, I believe it was that year or the year before, Michael was also a national champion in the AAU Junior Olympics. And if any of you have ever been to there and witnessed the National Junior Olympics in track and field, you would see a stadium with 30,000 to 50,000 people sitting there watching youth of all different ages competing. You would hear names like, I remember looking back at some tapes of my son and hearing the name RG3 in the background, getting ready to run the hurdles and things like that. Those are the kind of athletes you would see, and you're looking at a guy that won the national champion in the intermediate decathlon. He's something special. So, now I have to tell a few stories on him. That's what I need to do. Those are some stats and all that. But Michael Tibbs, I've only been run over twice in my life. Once was by a 300-pound lineman from Springdale, decleated me during a football game, and he got me, okay? Well, this guy got me too. We were at practice one day, and he was so competitive that he had challenged Austin Young to a race. We were running on a slope like this. I was standing at the top of the hill, and I said, on your mark, set, go. They took off running, and there was a race. And I'd already told Michael, I said, now look, you finish over on this side, and Austin's going to finish on this side. Everything's going to be good. You remember this? I think so. I mean, I told him ahead of time. And so we're going, and all I can see is Michael's running there right beside Austin. They're coming towards me, but he's looking at Austin. And he just keeps looking at Austin, and I'm going, no, he's not going to do this. I'm just standing my ground. No, he did it all the way. Ran right there, hit me in the chest, knocked me right off my feet. I was down. He's trying to help me up. I'm calling him an idiot. It was, you know, it was pretty normal for Michael Tibbs. That was the day I realized he might have a screw loose, okay? The day that Coach Smith and myself realized that he was actually missing the screw was when we went to that 2008 decathlon, and we got to the hotel. We settled in at the hotel and everything. We're trying to relax. It's at Cabot and all that. Coach Smith and I are finally getting ready to take the shoes off, kick back, and we hear this shriek and scream come from the room next to us. And we're going, what in the world is going on? We come piling out of our room. We go crashing in there. Michael and Austin Young are in there, and the two girls we had taken down there for the heptathlon were in there. And there is Mama Tibbs standing there screaming and yelling at the top of her lungs. Apparently Michael had it in his head somehow that if he shaved his legs, he'd be faster. So when they had gotten there, Michael didn't know anything about shaving a leg, so he talked one of the girls that was a heptathlete into coming in and showing him how to do it. So he's got shaving cream all over his leg, it's half shaven, and Mama Tibbs has lost it right here. At that point, she told us to get out of the room, and we did, and Michael shaved his legs, and you know, I think he may be onto something, because he won that decathlon. It was impressive. So anyway, here he is, Mr. Tibbs, Michael Tibbs.
Well, I guess it is a true story. I almost forgot that one. I'm really happy to be here. I don't think I've been back in this school since I graduated a little over 10 years ago. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee for choosing me. It's a humbling honor. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Coach Miles, for nominating me. It means a lot. Appreciate it. So, most of what I want to talk about, like most of the other inductees have talked about, is the people that have gotten me to where I am, the people who've supported me. And I'll try to do it without choking up, so we'll see. First, I want to start by thanking my wife, Alex. She's right there to boot. She want to raise her hand? Right there. Taking her on the pulse. And my new baby daughter, Aubrey, is over there. She was the one, I think she got a little fussy. She's over there, light of my life. Alex, she's my rock. And one thing I told her as we came out here is she's going to meet a lot of people that she hasn't met yet. And the good thing is that most of the people in this room shaped who I am. It made me the man I am today. All right, where do I start? Okay, elementary school. I went to elementary school at Bonnie Grimes, just down the road. And two people who are actually here today, right over there, were some of the first people who started helping, shape my personality, shape who I am. Because honestly, I had some disciplinary issues. I get in trouble every now and then, get in a fight every now and then. I needed some people in my life to keep me grounded. And those two people over there, Mrs. Carmichael, she was the president, the principal at Bonnie Grimes at the time. And that's Coach Bowman, I think Principal Bowman now. But Coach Bowman at the time, he had a track and field, like a cross-country program, and I got into it. And that's where I first started seeing the love of the sport I had for track and field. At the end of every year, every single grade, 1st through 5th grade, we had this thing called Field Day. I actually don't know if they still do it. It's where all the kids go out to the track and they do all the track and field events. You run the 100 meters, the 400 meters, throw a softball, which isn't actually a track and field event. Do discus or shot put, all those sorts of stuff. And I loved it. I loved having the opportunity to compete with other people. It's you versus them. And it's your fault if you lose. I started learning that at a very young age. That maybe work ethic is a key to success. So moving on, I got into middle school, junior high, and I meet some other very important people in my life. One of them is back there. Actually, two of them are back there. So Coach Smith, he's back there, and Jordan. Hey, buddy. Jordan, along with some other friends, I don't know if they're here. I can think of many of the people I went to school with that were influential in my life. Jordan was one of them. another one, Jordan Snodderly, Austin Young, Aaron McClarty. All of them were influential in helping me. Coach mentioned that halfway through my football season, tore my ACL. And I was hoping to come back and try to win the decathlon again my senior year. And after that, I wasn't confident. I'd lost the will to train, to come back and make it happen. But those kind of friends helped me. Jordan, we get up at 5 in the morning and we go work out, and he'd push me. Even when I was trying to recover from my knee, he'd push me. And I forever will appreciate you for doing that. It taught me to get up back on my feet after something tragic happens to you. And it's absolutely relatable to you. It's a real life. Coach Smith, man, I did. You guys know what up downs are in football? It's where you do your little feet thing, and then you jump on, you get on the ground, and you come back up. I think I did like a million of those things with it. So I was always in trouble. Showing up late to practice, he'd make me do up downs till I puked. It was insane. But he was also, in cahoots with Coach Smith here. He was the throws coach on the track team, and he made me a good thrower. He made me, for a smaller guy in terms of track and field throwing, I was able to compete with the big guys, and it was because of him. Moving into 9th grade in high school, I meet a bunch of more people. So I'll mention two others, actually 3 others. Coach Bray, which I believe is still coaching on the football team here. I think he actually might have a game tonight. He's the lineman coach. I think if he still is, he was when I was here. He, no matter how good you did, no matter how successful you were, it was never enough for him. And it was really good to have that kind of someone push you day in and day out. I remember we were doing squats in the gym, and when you do a squat, you got to go low enough to make it count as a rep. And we were doing squats, and I would go down, and he would say 1. And I'm expecting the next rep, I'd go down, and he'd say 2. 1. 1. 1. Because I wasn't going low enough. He wouldn't take it. He just wouldn't take it. So he demanded perfection. I really appreciate that from him, looking back on it all these years later. Next person I'd like to thank, and I don't know if she's here, but she's actually not a coach. She was a teacher. She's still, to this day, and I've been to a lot of schools, but still to this day, the most influential teacher that I've had, and that's Miss Linda Payne. I think she retired out of here a few years ago. She made me do push-ups in class when I'd screw up. Hey, Miss Payne, I didn't see you back there. Thanks for showing up. She made me do push-ups in class when I'd screw up math problems or take my phone out. I think at that time the smartphones were coming out, right? And it was just a joy having her as my math teacher. And honestly, she made me love math. I majored in engineering in college, and honestly, it's because of her. So, and the other coach I'd like to thank is sitting right here. That's Coach Jan Miles. So definitely the most influential coach that I've ever had. Again, it's hard to find someone who's willing to stay with you that late. We'd stay, like you said, to the sundown pole vaulting. Pole vaulting is a really demanding sport technically, so you get to put a lot of time into it. And he was willing to meet my demand in terms of what I wanted in terms of success. We have a bunch of dumb stories. I actually really enjoyed riding down in the small bus. We take a small bus to the decathlon every year. It would just be about five of us athletes and those 2 coaches, and we would just joke the whole time. I remember throwing discus in the parking lot. Like Austin Young, one of the guys that went to the decathlon with me. He didn't know how to throw the discus. He was a hurdler, state champion in 300-meter hurdles, and we had to go to the parking lot and teach him the discus because he never threw it before. The day before we were going to do it. So we're just throwing discus, and these loud clangs are hitting the parking lot. Probably scared a couple of people who were parking their cars there. They thought him or something. But that's a really good memory I have. So those are some really influential coaches and teachers in my life. But there's still more. I haven't talked about the family aspect or the family aspect yet. And that's what's most important. I have a lot of family members here today in the crowd, and I'm so happy that you all decided to come out. It means a lot. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of support throughout high school and college with family watching my track meets. JoJo, thanks for coming out in college. I traveled all around the country in college doing meets, and it's really awesome for my own aunt to show up and support me. I really appreciate it. But most important are my parents. Mom, Dad, can you raise your hands? This induction, it's not me, it's us. It's us. We were a team. And my mom was a statistician. She would, she'd research all my opponents, all of them. It was sort of creepy, but she was obsessed with the statistics, and me loving math, I loved it. We were able to see all my opponents. Hey, this guy, his event's the long jump. He's super good at this. This guy, he's really good at pole vault, or and the decathlon. I don't know how many people know much about it. It's 10 events over 2 days, and it has just about every track and field event you can think of. And the idea is not to be just good at one. You have to pretty much be versatile in every event to be able to win. So you don't have to be the best at any one event. You have to be versatile, be able to do everything. And she supported me through everything. Anything I needed, pole vault camp, different poles, my own special discus, taking me everywhere I needed to go. Absolutely supported me, number one, 100%. That includes also helping me write pretty much all of my college applications too, thank you. And then there's my dad. So my dad filled the void of the coach. He was my first coach. And I remember he was my soccer coach when I was in kindergarten, first grade. And then I found my love of football in 4th grade. And he coached me the whole way. He had a really busy job at Walmart. He was one of those Walmart exec guys, had a busy job, had a lot to do. But he was willing to sacrifice his time to make sure that I was successful. I mean, I remember, the Elmwood parking lot. It was a great place to throw the javelin. So you can't throw javelin in Arkansas High School, but in the national meets, you can throw the javelin. And we got a javelin from the U of A, and we would spend hours into the dark figuring out how to throw the thing, because neither of us knew how to do it, because they just don't do it here in the high school. So we would spend hours figuring out the technique, and I was pretty successful because of you. We'd spend hours out in the discus field, out at Elmwood. We'd go over there, and I'd yell at him because I'd get mad, and he'd yell at me back, but I look back on those times, and it was absolutely important to shape who I am. So thank you both. And thank you for still supporting me to this day. Well, I think I did all right. I didn't get too choked up. I'm really honored. I'm humbled that I'm able to be inducted into this group of amazing individuals and teams. And I really appreciate that all the people in my life that helped me become who I am are here. And I'm glad I was able to sort of tell you who those people are. So with that, thanks for listening to my spiel. Thank you.
When Scott Woods played baseball at Rogers High School, we considered him as the package deal. He ranks in practically every category that we keep statistics on, in hitting and pitching. In pitching, most pitching strikeouts in a career, most pitching wins in a season, best pitching ERA in a season, and number 1, most pitching strikeouts in a season. Offensively and hitting, highest on-base average in a season, most home runs in a season, most career home runs, and number 1, most runs scored in a season. Scott was selected All-Conference in 1997, All-State in 1998, was an All-Star. After graduation, he attended the University of Arkansas and was very successful in pitching there. What makes Scott, I think, a little different, and it's been brought up with these other inductees, he had the ability, when he played ball, to elevate the performance of people around him. He made other people better. He listened to instruction. He pursued, he wanted to get better, and he was a team player. I talked to the present coach today, Matt Nelson, recently, and he said that Scott, to this day, still comes to his ball games. We call that loyalty. I'm happy to introduce to you Scott Woods.
Thank you. I want to thank the committee for the nomination. It's a great honor. I want to thank Coach Woodruff. I played baseball for 7 years for Coach Woodruff, 4 in Little League, and then 3 in high school. And I don't know how many people other than Kyle and Patrick Woodruff can say that they had the same coach for 7 years before turning 19 years old. That just doesn't happen. Coach Woodruff, taught us the value of hard work, dedication, practice, and preparing for ball games to achieve your end result. We didn't lose a whole lot. There wasn't a whole lot of losses that we had to come back from with our heads hanging down because I think we realized that we outworked everybody that we played against, and it was pretty evident when you saw final scores. Coach Kilgore?
We ended up on the win.
I don't remember that. I don't know that we lost to Bentonville while I was here.
Have to argue.
But anyways, I'd also like to thank my parents. Growing up, I probably wore them out day after day when they got home from work and were tired to run outside and play catch, to pitch. I know that that's probably the last thing you want to do as a parent when you get home from work. But I dragged them out there anyways. Even when my dad was traveling for business, I'd play catch with my mom. And they were willing participants to support, what I wanted to do with baseball. Also thank my brother, who was the one who nominated me today. He would be the one who tried to help build my self-confidence. He would let me pitch to him in the backyard and strike out over and over and over again. But a 14-year-old was never going to let a 5-year-old get a hit off of him. I was way too competitive. So thank you, Alex. I appreciate it. And through baseball and my journey in baseball at the University of Arkansas, I was able to meet my wife. She was a Diamond Doll while I played, and she holds it over my head in the household that she's the only one that has been on the field at the College World Series. My senior year, we came up a win short of making it to Omaha, and now she gets to say that she was there and actually on the field. I never got that chance. I just want to talk a little bit about my experience here at Rogers. I think my first memory was I got to start as a junior, and I know Kyle and Patrick were on that team, and Patrick was starting, and Kyle was our first baseman. Early season tournament, we went to Harrison and played in that the classic that they always had there, and I know we got to either a semifinal or finals, and I knew we were playing a conference game probably the next week, and so we were holding Nate Nelson back to not pitch, and I think I got my first time on the mound at that time against a really good Pine Bluff team who had a pitcher who was committed to the University of Arkansas, but then got drafted by the Miami Marlins, or they were Florida Marlins back then. But to go up against this guy who, everybody knew he threw really hard, he's going to be a great challenge. He also had a catcher that signed and played at Ole Miss. But for Coach Woodruff to have the confidence in me to put me out there for that game, I was a little nervous. Not going to lie. Whenever their pitcher got out to the mound, they had a bunch of radar guns and scouts in the stands. And then I get on the mound for my warm-ups, and I'm throwing 80, and they put them all away. But to go out and, just did what we were taught and prepared to do, and that was to compete. And ended up leaving that game with a lead. I think I had to come out after 5 innings because I just don't think I had thrown that long before, but had, put up a better start than the guy against on the other team. And I think I even got a couple of hits off of him. And it was a game that helped build my confidence greatly. I came out of it pretty unscathed, other than the line drive I took off the leg from that catcher that went to Ole Miss that really hurt. So that was the beginning, I think, for me, of starting to believe that I belonged and I could play. I could play at a high level. Continue on through that year, played a lot, had a lot of success. We had a lot of team success. And then get into the summer of my senior year, and Nate Nelson, I've got to thank Nate and the Minnesota Twins for drafting me, because if Nate had not signed to go play for the Twins that summer, I would never have gotten to throw and pitch as much as I did that summer of my junior year. And by doing that, I played for Bob Taylor in American Legion, and he taught me a slider. We worked on a slider all summer, and just getting to fill those innings that Nate would have had, continued to build arm strength and get better throughout that off season, to come back for my senior year and fill that void sort of that Nate left. And ended up having a great senior year. We had a lot of great team success. Patrick probably wants to fill his uncle in that he actually has the single season home run record with 12. I actually finished 4th on our team with 9. We hit a lot of home runs. There was nothing that our bats couldn't work our way out of that year. Coach Kilgore probably remembers that long 13-inning game we played. We had a really good team. Playing with Patrick, Kyle, I had a lot of great teammates. We played together since we were 9 years old, so those are bonds that are formed with, a passion for baseball, but then it just continues on throughout life. We're all still great friends. Try to see each other when we can. I know Patrick reached out to me a couple of nights ago, congratulating me, and it really meant a lot, because him and his family have meant a lot to me and our family ever since we moved here, I think back in 1988. This is really more of an honor for a collective team than for me individually, because as you know, baseball and football, it takes the full team working together in order to be able to achieve your goals. I also want to thank Ryan Hemans. Had a friend from elementary school come out this evening. We've known each other for a long time. We're roommates after college, along with Scott Crossett, who I played baseball with at Arkansas, who I really looked up to once I got to the U of A, to the older guys that were there that kind of guided me through, what to expect, what the expectations were of you, what kind of work you're going to have to put in order to be there and contribute. And he's really meant a lot to me since the time that I showed up on campus in 2001. Again, I thank you for this honor. I would never trade my experience academically or athletically at Rogers High School. It was something that just couldn't be topped. It was great, phenomenal. I do bleed blue. My wife does receive a paycheck from Bentonville High School. She's a vice principal there, so it's a little tough at times. But maybe we'll get her over here one day. Thank you again. Appreciate it from the committee. Congratulations to all the inductees, and thank you.